Steve Wright is the boss of the Organisation for Private Hire Car Drivers and a former TfL board member when Boris Johnson was mayor. Steve, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Listen, cabs are not going to be like the black cabs aren't going to be affected by this, are they? Because they're all compliant in some way.
No, that's not the case. In fact, they're far more polluting than private hire vehicles. It's a bit of a bizarre situation.
But they're exempt, aren't they?
Yes, they are. It's like they're exempt from the congestion charge, but they drive around looking for jobs. So there's some heavy lobbying been done by the black cabs. We've lobbied as well, but it seems that the private hire industry that has a much cleaner fleet is actually in scope for this.
So I was taken from Wimbledon to the South Bank the other day, and this bloke charged me 15 quid, as well as the cab fare. Was he ripping me off, Steve, while I've got you on the line?
No, he wasn't. Unfortunately, our industry, much against protestations that I've made, is charged for congestion charge. And, of course, this is an absolute ridiculous situation. I went to Ken Livingstone when he was mayor. I've worked with all the mayors where possible, and he gave us a congestion charge exemption. Unfortunately, it was reintroduced a couple of years ago on the basis that lots of these disruptors drivers were coming into London and causing congestion. However, that could have been dealt with. That was actually illegal. They could have been fined, but the outcome has been that they've congestion charged the industry. And one private hire vehicle, minicab, chauffeur, can actually do 20-odd jobs in London, which means that there are 19 less vehicles in. So the whole thing against, this is taxation. It's not congestion removing as such. We would say it's actually a retrograde step.
Although there is very compelling evidence to say that the air that people in the central London zone, where the congestion charge has been, is a lot cleaner than it was before, and that is a good thing, and that's the argument against what you're saying. I mean, what they're trying to do is, in effect, tax cars off the road.
Well, yes. On the widest, for the public, of course, it has had an effect, and there has been less vehicles in central London. But with regard to the private hire vehicles that are already very clean and are being asked to pay £40,000-50,000 to get electrified, they're taxing them at a time they should be putting that money towards the next tranche of vehicles. Year on year, since licensing came into London, the London private hire industry that represents minicabs and chauffeurs has been getting cleaner and greener. So why congestion charge those people who've got the cleanest vehicles and not congestion charge the taxi industry or make these charges on the taxi industry? That's the point.
You can go and check the ULEZ by putting your registration in, and it'll tell you whether you're subject to the ULEZ or not. This is, in effect, diesel cars of a few years old, isn't it? That's what's going to get hit mainly. I mean, people who were encouraged to get diesel cars are now going to be subject to this new charge of ULEZ, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's what part of the problem. The industry, some vehicles are particularly special needs vehicles and vehicles that have lots of expensive conversions done to them to actually take specialist passengers, are predominantly diesel, and there aren't any electric models of those. And when they were bought, and we were encouraged to get them by the government, they were bought with a 10-year life cycle. So these people are now being taxed for doing what the government, of yesteryear said we should do as an industry. It is a bit of a nonsense, to be honest with you, and whilst there's some exemptions for the disabled and various other people, many people that use taxis and private hire vehicles do not actually own a car. And you're actually penalising those people when the industry is really fighting to get much cleaner and greener.
And you, if you're a resident, there's no exemptions for this, is there? This is you're straight in, and there's no exemptions for residents.
Not sure. I'll be honest with you.
I think I read that, Steve. So I don't think there's any exemptions.
Yeah, I haven't obviously studied the residential discounts because we're mainly concerned with working drivers that are already on the floor from the pandemic, sure, that worked throughout, lost people. Taxis and private hire drivers were amongst the highest fatalities in the COVID situation, and the industry is in a very difficult place. It certainly doesn't need congestion charging, and there needs to be a bit of empathy with having been told to get diesel vehicles and, actually buying those vehicles, particularly the more expensive ones, being effectively fined, when really we should be putting that money towards getting better, cleaner vehicles, which we've been doing for 20 years since licensing came in.
Steve, thank you very much indeed. That's Steve Wright, boss of the Organisation for Private Hire Car Drivers, former TfL board member when Boris Johnson was mayor.